Hello, we are OpenFarm, and this is our demo presentation. So, starting with the overall status of the project, we have good functionality, but most of it exists on the back end. So, the best way that we wanted to illustrate this functionality is through a use case example that can be executed right now on the system as it currently exists. So, a print request can be issued through the Google form that we've developed, at which point a confirmation will be issued to the email that utilized this Google form. So, in real world, this would be the patron. The job and attendant info, for example, the JID, which is uniquely generated by us on the back end, will then be inserted into the database to track this state change. The RabbitMQ, which is our queuing service, is going to then enqueue that job request, and the printer management service, which is listening to RabbitMQ for these requests, will then be notified and receive this request. The PMS will then pull the printers that are available, doing so via the Octoprint API to see which ones can actually handle the job, and then the print job will execute to completion. Currently, as I stated before, this is going to be on a virtual printer for the purposes of this example, but this example would also map quite cleanly onto real life once we enhance the existing functionality.
Okay, so the first thing users are greeted with when they interact with our system is our submission form. Currently, we are using a Google form to simplify this and take care of a lot of the details for us. Ultimately, we will have a self-hosted option and then an option to integrate with other ticketing systems like the one the library currently uses. So I'll go ahead and get this form filled out and submitted here so that we can move on with the demo. I will append a G-code file, just a random one that I have, and then I'll choose one copy. I'm leaving the notification things blank for now. They are optional and they're not currently implemented. So once I get this submitted, I will receive an email shortly saying that it has been submitted and processed. Let me just pop over. Oh, but I already got it. So let me pull this over to this screen. Awesome. So here is the OpenFarm print job confirmation email that we get. This is done with a custom SMPT email server that our guy Josh here wrote. You can see he got us a great professional looking email. So now that we have this, the next thing that I'll do is check to see if the print has been started yet. And it has not been sent to a printer yet. That should happen shortly. The worker runs on an interval. We can see here that the print has now been started. This is a virtual printer, so it's not showing anything that's actually happening, but it will simulate this test file that it uploaded. And then you can see on this G-code viewer here, it shows the print in operation. Next, I'll show our desktop app that we use to monitor the print farm. You can see here we have our live printer currently running. The print queue here would show any that were waiting to be printed. And then in this printer status area, you can see our live demo printer. It's online and active. A lot of this is placeholders for the moment while we get everything fully working, like these tabs up here are placeholders. It's just the home screen that we've implemented. And that is our demo. Thank you.
Yeah, so regarding the functionality that I worked on specifically, the two primary things I would say I spent the most time on would be the Octoprint testing service and the printer management service. So, starting with the Octoprint testing service, which I like to call the OTS, I implemented profile configurations, and a lot of these were relatively general, just kind of small details. For example, there are certain options that need to be configured, such as cross-origin request services in Octoprint to allow it to actually have the API communicate with it from our backend, specifically from the printer management service. And that leads me into the actual API integration. I spent a great deal of time, honestly, just reading a lot of the API stuff. And I shouldn't say stuff, the documentation. But after that, I spent a great deal of time also writing logic that leveraged the API. I actually quite like the API. It just uses HTTP requests. I would like a way to make this a bit more secure for our purposes. But currently, as it stands right now, it was relatively easy to work with. And then the virtualized hardware configuration, the hardest part was honestly just hunting for the actual specifications from the manufacturer, but they have a plugin for simulating various printers, and that made things quite easy. So for the printer management service, I had to integrate several different services such as RabbitMQ, the Postgres database, and the Octoprint testing service. Um, and this is implemented in the form of a worker service. I found it quite difficult to integrate all of them at once, but they weren't all of equal difficulty, I would say. For example, the way that it's integrated with RabbitMQ, it specifically listens to a channel that's published by RabbitMQ, which is fundamentally different from the way it interacts with the OTS, where it's using the API to actually send messages directly. But these are the things I was primarily responsible for.
Hello, my name is Matthew Elliott. The three parts of this project that I was responsible for the prototype are RabbitMQ, our Google Forms submission service, and our physical 3D printer hardware setup. So RabbitMQ is a messaging service or a queuing service that we use to coordinate between our microservices. So a service will get a message from RabbitMQ and then perform some work and then notify RabbitMQ that that message was successfully completed. And then usually we will send another message in order for the next part of the service or the system to know that it needs to continue working. Um, this is a really robust system. It allows everything to work in its own like small little unit, and then messages are maintained. If like a service goes down or isn't working for some reason, the messages just stay in RabbitMQ so that that work isn't lost and it can be completed later. I also did our Google Forms submission service, so um, we take submissions from users through an online Google form, which we then query periodically to check if new forms have been submitted. And then this listener service takes that data and processes it into the form that we need, and then sends a message to RabbitMQ for other parts of the service to listen for so that they can process that message that we just received. And then I also set up our physical 3D printer. This is connected to a Raspberry Pi that's running a service called Octoprint, which is like a web server that controls the printer, and we're able to communicate with it over an API. So as far as how this works with the rest of the services, I basically start things off with the Google Form submission. That's like the first thing that users will do. And then once they've submitted that and we've received it, the other parts of the system will handle it and then send it to the 3D printer, which is the other part of the system that I worked on. Um, so yes, thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Josh, and I'm a part of the OpenFarm team, and I'm going to quickly go over my responsibilities for the project. What I was responsible for was our database, which we decided to use Postgres for. I also made a database access helper so that other services can communicate with that database, and then I also made an email service as well. Going back, just starting with our database, what I had to do for that is I had to create a bunch of initialization scripts, a bunch of scripts that laid out our schema for our database, what tables we needed, and also pre-populated with some information that we needed for demo day about the specific printer models that we were using. These initialization scripts only run once on initialization. Our entire project is Dockerized. When you Docker Compose up, just builds everything. I also helped a little bit with that Compose. But yeah, these initialization scripts only run on initialization of like the project, don't get run again. The database access helper as well, just like a C# class that allows for other services to easily interact with the database. For example, I'm sure Hunter's talking about his printer management service. For him, he's super easily able to just import this access helper, create an object of it, and then just call the methods he needs and then receive the information out. So he can just be like, hey, get me all the jobs that are currently available. And then I just give him that information. I wanted to make it as easy as for my teammates for accessing the database, whether reading or writing to it. So they didn't have to worry about a bunch of SQL and stuff. All they had to do, call a method, get the info they want. Super great for that. It also could help us limit access to like what services are allowed to interact with the database in different ways. I also made a custom email service that just interacts with Matt's RabbitMQ service that basically when it receives a message, just sends out to the user a custom email from our Open Farm communications email of their job number, just because they have multiple jobs, so that they know that we've received that particular job. One thing, I actually originally wrote this email service in C. I really like low-level programming. I think system level programming is super cool. Realized it wasn't the right decision when I create a bunch of custom structs and stuff for handling email services. So this big like C mail service that I had, I basically scrapped, rewrote it in C sharp, much smaller, much nicer now. It actually took a little bit of while since it's like a custom SMTP server, not code-wise, but applying to Google and allowing us to be able to use their SMTP server. In fact, during testing, I actually got banned because I sent too many out and I had to appeal that. Luckily, they understood and realized what we were using it for, so we got unbanned with that. Yeah, no, those are quickly what I had to do for the project. Moving
My name is Tyler Peters, and I mainly worked on the native desktop app. So we created this with Avalonia UI, and it was a real process of getting to know how the system works. So currently, the only thing that is fully, not even fully implemented, but partially implemented is the home screen right here. If you click onto any of these other tabs, it will just say that they haven't been implemented yet, but the tab functionality works as of now. And so we have three main columns. We have the printing column, our printer status, and then we have our stats and messages. So currently the only one that actually interacts with our database helper built by Josh is the printing, and this will only work when you first run the or Docker up. So it doesn't dynamically work with the database as of yet. There were some bugs with that. That shouldn't be too hard to fix this summer and the fall. But for right now, this won't dynamically update, but we are able to read from the database, which is nice. And then in our printer status, all of these are hard coded. Eventually, we want it to be that once we actually detect printer maintenance that needs to be done, if it's actually printing and things like that, we want these actual icons to update. But for now, it's just hard coded. And as of right now, the messages will not go through as well. But what we did on this project, I'm really proud of, and a lot of my time was spent trying to make the UI look nice and making sure that nothing was hard coded in the UI aspect, just so that once you actually dynamically change the screen size, it won't break, except for the images right now. That needs to be fixed. But yeah, I'm happy with our project, and that's what I contributed with.
currently really happy with the state of our project. We'll be working over this summer, in fact, with the Marriott Library. Just we learn more about their needs and requirements. Since this will be used at the U, gotta work with IT, make sure that they're fine with our project and how we're implementing and doing stuff. And also learning more from Erica, who's in charge of the protospace, exactly more about their needs and what they specifically want. But, we're super excited to finish up our project in the fall and make it more polished and implement the rest of our features.